Hello, world. Welcome to the Vaping Unplugged Podcast. Everything you need to know about vaping and tobacco harm reduction.
Hello, vapers. You are watching Vaping Unplugged, and greetings from the WVA team. We have gathered here in Lisbon, Portugal. We're discussing and working on our future activities. And today we'll be updating you on them and talking a little bit what's going on around the world in vaping and what are our campaigns. Michael, maybe you want to talk about a little what's going on in Sweden?
Yes, sure. First of all, it's super cool to be here in Lisbon. What we also need to mention is our two other colleagues, Mariam and Lika. They are here with us, but they have recorded already another episode of Vaping Unplugged. So you will see them later as well. And talking about Sweden, yes, it's upcoming campaign from us with the goal to showcase the Swedish smoking cessation miracle, I would say, because they are about to become the first country which achieves the smoke-free goal. And in fact, 17 years earlier than set by the EU. And ironically, it's one of the few countries which got some exemptions of the EU policies. So they do not exactly the opposite, but they go the opposite way as the EU wants to see it. They are open for harm reduction. They embrace vaping, snus, nicotine pouches, and the results are fantastic because almost nobody's smoking anymore. All the smoking-induced illnesses are on record low levels compared to other EU countries. So they do exactly the perfect thing and beat smoking thanks to harm reduction. And we want to showcase to EU policymakers how they did it and that they should follow their lead instead of this nanny state prohibition way they are on. And obviously, that's what we planned here the last few days. So excited to go to Stockholm and Brussels and talk about Sweden more in the next few weeks.
That's exciting. I hope you will be following our campaigns and activities and also engaging with us and telling us your stories. I wish Sweden's example was the case for my country too, because recently, it's not the case at all. Like, people unfortunately don't know much about harm reduction yet. And recently, there was a video, like a huge television basically was featuring full of, they were talking about vaping, but it was full of misconceptions and myths that we usually hear about vaping. And it was very bad to see that. And apart from that, a lot of friends who know that where I work and what I do were sending me this link, and they were in panic. And I was just like, guys, chill. I will send you a research where you can see that it's all not accurate.
What was the most outrageous claim?
The most outrageous claim was that people using vaping devices were getting some lung injuries. And, the words are chosen really accurately there because they were probably referring to the Valley outbreak, who knows. But, that's I tried to explain to them that if you drink coffee and put something else in the coffee, like some other substance rather than, for instance, then you should not blame coffee for being poisonous, right? Something like that. So people were really panicking, and they were there was a huge hype on social media. So, but it's good that some of them were messaging me, so I had a chance to do huge monologues on harm reduction and that this is misinformation attacking vaping, actually. Do you guys have examples like this too?
I have some fun examples because misinformation is very common in Latin America. All of the governments and the state media, they are spreading different myths of vaping, and they are actually very believed among the population. And some weeks ago, I received this message linking some article from the Dominican Republic, and it was from an oncologist, a cancer doctor, and she somehow related vaping with erectile dysfunction and also with penis cancer.
Wow.
So, I don't know what the relationship can be, but she figured it out to say that. So a lot of misinformation there. People believe all of the myths on vaping, everything you can think of, they believe it there. So really a big button.
And by the way, in that show that I was talking about, they mostly were inviting doctors who were spreading misinformation. So that's really sad to see that a lot of people working in public healthcare also don't know much about harm reduction. But that's why we're here to provide and try to debunk those myths and provide with more accurate information.
I think there's also a lot of misinformation spreads through social media. Recently, I was meeting a friend, and she doesn't know what I'm doing, and we were discussing different things. And then she starts talking about vaping. That apparently on TikTok there is a lot of videos where you can see that there is water in your lungs. So people talk about.
You can see.
No, but on TikTok you see a lot of videos. Of people talking about getting water in their lungs because of vaping. And I think with TikTok, since it's so widespread among wide population, it's probably the biggest source of misinformation about vaping. And I'm kind of imagine that there isn't that many people or channels that would actually spread correct information on TikTok. So those who just keep scrolling, they go believing that you can get water in your lungs because of vaping.
Yeah.
And I think that's also the serious side about this. I mean, we can laugh about penis cancer, but I think the problem is a lot of people, and especially the current smokers, are scared away of transitioning to other alternatives.
Yeah, for sure. And that means that those misconceptions really work on a bad side, basically, and they harm public health and people's health to switch to less harmful nicotine alternatives, for sure. That's why it's so important, I think, for all of us to share our stories, the way we switched. And I encourage everyone who is actually watching us to make sure to share their stories too, because that matters a lot. And also, what we are trying to do is to provide scientific information, because people actually also believe that there is no research about vaping, which is another huge misconception. And that's also a very important factor, just to read it and just to understand how harm reduction works.
And I mean, combating misinformation was one of the main goals why the WVA even started, because it's clear that misinformation is rampant about vaping. People see something coming out of the mouth and equate everything with cigarettes, and then politician wants to regulate it the same way. And then we see countries failing in their quest for smoking cessation or reducing the smoking rates. But at the same time, we have these best case examples right in front of us who do the opposite, like Sweden or the UK. And I think the more we talk about this, the more also doctors and scientists get involved in this debate, the better it is, because I think the evidence is crystal clear. It's just a matter of spreading it and getting it out.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think that we're going to win this battle because the truth is on our side. And the evidence is very clear. There is evidence for 15 years of vaping now, and all the studies say that vaping is much safer than smoking. There are a lot of governments and research organizations backing all this evidence. And I think we just need to make sure that we deliver it correctly and that we debunk all this misinformation with it. But we are on the right position. So.
And just for the record, my bad coughing is not caused by vaping or water in my lungs. It's 2 days hard work and 1 or 2 beers in the evenings with these great people. No, I think you're right. That's one of the main things to try to get the message out, and also in a way that is easily understandable in the general public. But I think we should also not forget the policy fields, because this misinformation also leads to bad regulation, and that we see when we visit some politicians in the parliament a lot.
Yes, and also because the vaping is a new technology, relatively very new technology, and a lot of people who hear it by the name of e-cigarette consider it to have tobacco because of the name cigarette, and that's also one of the issues. And another is the flavors. That is always misperceived as a bad factor, while they are helping people to switch and forget the taste of tobacco. And I wish the media would be talking a lot more and featuring people who, experts, scientists, doctors, who would step up and speak up in support of correct, accurate information. Because through the media, through popular media, television, newspapers, that's where most of the population get the news. And for this reason, that the media is usually very critical and not always accurate, the majority of the population has that misperceived understanding that vaping could be the same as tobacco, as cigarette.
Yeah. Just to conclude, I want to say that I think one more point about regulation is that as much as it's tied to the local context in different countries, so the legislations and policies differ, it's also very much like repeats itself, because, for instance, it's relevant to my country where I live. They mostly repeat the legislation that's implemented in the EU. So whatever they do in the EU, I'm expecting that they're going to do later on in my country. And that's why it's important to keep an eye on what is going on globally and make sure that we all as a vaping community raise our voices each time the vaping is under threat, doesn't matter in which country. So let's make sure we do that, and let's make sure we talk about our personal examples too and debunk as many misconceptions as possible. Thank you for watching us today.
Thank you.
Vape on.
Bye-bye.